Right. So you know how LA is usually all about sunshine and beaches?
Right.
Well, January 2025
Yeah.
kind of turned that picture upside down. Wildfires ripped through the county, and it was just devastating.
Yeah, it was really unprecedented. We had 6 fires, all burning at the same time,
Wow.
fueled by conditions you just don't expect to see, that early in the year.
And the impact was massive, right? 11 lives were lost. 10,000 structures gone. Homes, businesses just completely destroyed.
Yeah.
They're estimating the economic damage to be somewhere between $135 and $150 billion.
It's hard to even grasp what that kind of loss means.
Right, like what does that actually mean for people?
And the thing is, a lot of it, the human cost and the economic fallout, it could have been prevented.
Wait, hold on, prevented? How?
There's some incredible science out there, predictive models, that could have given us, way more warning about these fires.
Yeah.
In fact, we've got 2 research papers right here that lay out exactly how this could work.
Okay.
One uses something called point process modeling.
Point process modeling. That sounds intense. What is that?
Well, it's basically using patterns from past fires to pinpoint future risks.
Okay.
So, imagine looking at all the data from previous fires.
Yeah.
Where they started, how they spread,
Right.
what contributed to them. And then you use these sophisticated algorithms to analyze all that data
Yeah.
and identify the areas that are most likely to experience fires in the future.
So it's not just about where fires have happened before,
No.
but also about understanding why they happened.
Exactly. Yeah. And that brings us to the second paper,
Okay.
which focuses on modeling complex wildfire scenarios.
Got it.
So this one takes things a step further by factoring in things like climate change,
Okay.
the way the land is shaped,
Oh.
and even human actions.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's like a giant puzzle.
Right.
They're trying to put all these pieces together to get a clearer picture of how and where fires might ignite.
That's a great way to put it. And you're saying that these models, they could have actually predicted the 2025 fires?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yes.
They saw it coming.
If we look at the key factors that led to those fires,
Mm-hmm.
they line up almost perfectly with what the research was telling us.
Wow.
Take the dry conditions, for instance.
Okay.
Rainfall in January 2025 was almost 40% below average.
Oh, wow.
And that creates what we call tinderbox conditions, where everything is just primed to burn.
Right. It's like the whole area was just a powder keg just waiting for a spark.
Exactly. And then you add in those notorious Santa Ana winds.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking 35 to 50 miles per hour sustained winds.
I remember getting footage of that. It was like something out of a movie.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That kind of wind can turn a small spark into a raging inferno
So fast.
incredibly quickly. And it's a critical factor that the Modeling Complex Scenarios paper really emphasizes. Wind patterns are crucial for predicting fire behavior
Yeah.
because they dictate how quickly and in which direction a fire will spread.
Okay, so we've got the dry conditions, we've got the wind, but what about location? Did the models have anything to say about where the fires would start?
They absolutely did.
Hmm.
Remember how I mentioned that the point process model identifies high-risk areas?
Yeah.
Well, both research papers highlighted specific zones in LA County
Okay.
that were historically prone to wildfires.
Got it.
And guess what? Those are exactly the areas that got hit hardest in 2025.
Oh, wow.
Places like Pacific Palisades and Altadena. These models were flagging these areas as high risk long before the fires broke out.
So it's not just about predicting that a fire will happen somewhere in LA County. It's about pinpointing the specific neighborhoods that are most vulnerable.
Precisely. And that's what makes these models so powerful.
Right.
They don't just tell us that there's a risk,
Uh-huh.
they tell us where the risk is highest.
Okay.
And that allows us to prioritize our resources and our preparedness efforts.
It makes you wonder what could have been done differently if these models had been, fully integrated into our emergency response system.
Right. That's a question worth exploring.
Yeah.
What if, instead of being caught off guard, we had days, even a week, of advance notice?
Yeah.
This could have completely changed the way we responded to the 2025 fires.
It's like stepping into an alternate timeline where we had the knowledge to act decisively and potentially avoid the worst of the damage.
Exactly. Instead of last-minute evacuations and scrambling to deploy resources, imagine a scenario where we were prepared and waiting.
That's what we're going to explore next. How could these models have actually changed the course of events in 2025? What could have been done differently? What would that alternate timeline have looked like? Stay tuned.
It's fascinating to think about how things might have played out differently if we had been able to use these models to our advantage.
Right. It's like we're looking back at a missed opportunity. We had these powerful tools at our disposal, but we weren't fully utilizing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the most impactful ways we could have used these models is in something called targeted fuel management.
Fuel management. Okay.
Yeah.
For those of us who aren't firefighters, what exactly does that entail?
Well, think of all the dry brush, dead trees, and overgrown vegetation in these high-risk areas.
Right.
All that flammable material acts as fuel for the fire.
Yeah, makes sense.
The more fuel there is, the more intense the fire will be and the faster it will spread.
Oh, wow.
So fuel management is essentially about reducing that fuel load.
So it's like clearing out some of that vegetation to create fire breaks.
Exactly.
Make it harder for the fire to spread.
But that's where the models come in.
Oh.
They can help us prioritize where we focus our efforts.
All right.
Instead of just doing broad-scale clearing, which can be costly and sometimes even harmful to the ecosystem,
Right.
we can use the models to identify the most critical areas.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Using the data to make sure we're putting our resources in the right places.
And fuel management is just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The models can also inform how we design and build our communities, making them more fire resistant.
So thinking about things like building codes, landscaping, and the materials we use in construction.
You got it. We can design homes and neighborhoods in a way that makes them less susceptible to fire damage. And it's not just about new development.
Right.
We can also retrofit existing structures to make them more defensible against wildfires.
So even if a fire does ignite, these measures can help prevent it from spreading as rapidly,
Exactly.
giving firefighters a better chance to contain it.
It's about creating layers of protection.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the physical infrastructure.
Okay.
We also need to think about community education and preparedness.
Right. Making sure people understand the risks,
Yeah,
having a plan in place,
absolutely.
and knowing what to do when an evacuation order comes through.
It's about empowering communities to take an active role in their own safety.
I like that.
So instead of just reacting to the chaos, we could have been proactive and prepared, potentially mitigating a lot of the damage.
Okay, so let's go back to that alternate timeline for a moment. Imagine we're in January 2025, and the models are fully integrated into our emergency response system. What does that look like? What happens differently?
Well, for starters, instead of those last-minute frantic evacuations,
Yeah.
people would receive targeted alerts days in advance,
Wow.
warning them of the specific risk in their area.
So not just a general warning about fire danger, but personalized information based on your location.
Exactly. These alerts would tell you the projected path of the fire,
Wow.
the level of risk in your area,
Okay.
and specific steps you should take to prepare.
That would give people time to secure their homes,
Right.
gather important documents, and
Yeah.
make arrangements for their families and pets.
It would also give firefighters a crucial head start.
Okay.
They could use the models to pre-position resources and personnel in the areas identified as highest risk.
So instead of reacting to the fire as it spreads,
Right.
they're strategically deployed and ready to attack it from the get-go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they could even use the models to simulate different firefighting strategies
Oh, wow.
and determine the most effective approach.
It's like a virtual war room where they're gaming out the best way to combat the fire before it even ignites.
That's a great analogy. And imagine the impact this could have on the overall scale of the fires.
Right.
Instead of 6 massive fires burning out of control, we might have been able to contain them to smaller, more manageable blazes.
And that translates to fewer lives, lost, fewer homes destroyed,
Yeah.
and a much lower economic impact.
Precisely. And that brings us to a really important question.
Okay.
What if this wasn't just a one-time event? What if these mega fires are becoming the new normal?
That's a chilling thought,
It is.
but it's something we need to consider, especially in light of climate change.
You're right.
Right.
You can't ignore the role that climate change is playing in all of this.
Right.
Rising temperatures, prolonged droughts.
Yeah.
They're creating conditions that are much more favorable to wildfire ignition and spread.
So these 2025 fires were a tragedy, but they were also a wake-up call.
Definitely.
They showed us what can happen when we fail to adapt to a changing climate.
Exactly. And that's why these predictive models are so important.
Right.
They're not just about responding to individual fires.
Yeah.
They're about understanding the bigger picture,
Okay.
the long-term trends, and the challenges we're facing as a planet.
It's about using science to inform our decisions
Exactly.
and make our communities more resilient in the face of these growing threats.
Precisely. And that's something we'll delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
You know, we've spent this deep dive exploring some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
The destruction, the science, the missed opportunities.
Right.
But I gotta admit, I'm feeling like a glimmer of hope.
I get that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom.
Right.
But I think when I look at this research,
Yeah.
I see human ingenuity at work.
Okay.
We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know, developing these new tools and strategies to adapt to this changing world.
Right. It's like we're facing these unprecedented challenges and they're forcing us to think outside the box.
Yeah, and that's where science really shines.
Okay.
It's not just about collecting the data, it's about using that data to make smarter decisions to build a safer, more sustainable future.
So we're not just predicting the unthinkable.
No.
We're actively working to prevent it.
Exactly, and that's what I find so exciting about this field.
Yeah.
It's not just about studying the problem. It's about rolling up our sleeves and finding solutions.
You know, a lot of people have this image of scientists as being detached from the real world,
Right.
like working in their labs, isolated from the chaos.
Yeah.
But what we've seen today is that science is like deeply connected to our lives,
Absolutely.
our communities, the choices we make every day.
Couldn't agree more. I think the 2025 wildfires were a wake-up call for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Made climate change feel very real, very tangible, and very urgent.
And it's not just about wildfires, right? I mean, we're seeing the impact of climate change everywhere. From stronger hurricanes to rising sea levels to extreme heat waves.
It's a global issue that demands a global response.
And that response needs to be grounded in solid science, right?
Absolutely.
We need to listen to the experts, trust the evidence, and base our decisions on the best available information.
100%.
Yeah.
This isn't about politics.
Right.
This is about survival.
Yeah, we all share this planet,
Right.
and we have a responsibility to protect it, not just for ourselves, but for future generations.
Well said.
Oh.
And I'm seeing a growing awareness of that responsibility across all sectors of society.
Right.
Businesses, governments, communities are coming together to address this challenge.
There's definitely a sense of urgency, but also a sense of optimism.
Yeah.
It feels like we're finally starting to grasp the scale of the problem and mobilize the resources to tackle it.
It won't be easy. There will be setbacks. But I believe we have the ingenuity, the technology, and the collective will to turn things around.
I love that. Imagine a future where wildfires are no longer seen as these inevitable disasters,
Right.
but as manageable risks.
Yeah.
A future where we live in harmony with nature, not in fear of it.
Yeah.
A future where we leave behind a healthy planet for our children and grandchildren.
That's a future worth fighting for.
Absolutely. And it's a fight we can win if we work together, if we listen to the science and never give up hope. I want to leave you with this thought. What can you do? What action can you take to contribute to the solution? Will you commit to learning more about the issue, to talking to your friends and family, to getting involved in your community? The power to create change lies within each of us. Let's make this a turning point. Let's make this the moment we choose a better future.